All right. Let's move on to guest number 3, our special guest that is rounding out our speakers celebrating International Women's Day is Dr. Susan Nattress. And I don't even know where to begin to talk about Dr. Nattress's background. She shoots sport trap, both trap and double trap. I'm going to touch a couple of high points, and I certainly hope that we're going to get into a few of those things with her. And please correct me if I get any of these things wrong. I got them from Wikipedia. So,
Oh, it's going to be wrong.
okay, well, I have 6-time Olympian. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct.
Shooting Federation of Canada Female Athlete of the Year 8 times.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. Okay. 7-time women's world trap shooting champion.
Yes.
World record holder women's trap shooting from 74 through to 89 and double trap for 93.
Yes.
All right. You were inducted into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame in 1977.
Yep.
The Canadian Olympic Association Hall of Fame in 1975.
Yep.
You were Canada's Female Athlete of the Year in 77 and 1981. I think you were between Terry Fox and Wayne Gretzky in one of those years.
And 81 was for the Canada's Athlete of the Year.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the proud points from talking with you earlier today is that you led a 5-year campaign advocating for women in Olympic shooting sports. And I hope we can talk about that as we move along here tonight. So I would really like to welcome our special guest, Dr. Susan Nattress. I am humbled and honored. My first game was shooting a shotgun, and your name was mentioned by a number of the great shooters in the Calgary area. And so let's get into the Dr. Nattress story. And I think, is it okay if I call you Susan?
Yep. Susan, Sue, fine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I'll stop talking and let's let you talk. Tell us how you got into this and how you got started and who were your coaches and mentors.
Far, far away.
In a land far away, a time long
Long
ago.
ago. Back when Noah and I came over on the ark. So my father started trap shooting in Calgary when I was 5. So our family outings, some people get to go to the lake. We went to trap shoots, American style trap shooting. That's what we did. So I always wanted to try trap shooting. My older brother did it, and then he quit. And then I started when I was 12. And I basically, at the time, the top woman American trap shooter was a woman out of Calgary named Vera Holsworth. And Vera was fantastic. And she was sort of this is who I want to be, because she could beat the men all the time. So I kept going to my father. I want to learn how to shoot. I want to learn how to shoot. And yeah. Well, then Vera said to him, Floyd, if you don't teach the girl, I will. And well, he goes, no way. Anybody is going to teach my kid. So he taught me how to started me when I was 12, and my younger brother was 8. And so we started, and I was sort of mediocre, but I liked it. It was fine. And then I got better. And I think when I was 15, we were in California for a shoot, and I tied with a woman who was one of the top shooters in North America. We had a shoot off. And for those of you who are thinking about the psychology aspects, one of the things I did before my one shot, I'd say, this is a good sport because pull, boom. This is a stupid sport because pull, boom. I'm 15.
I love it. I love it.
And so I ended up running 25 out of 25 and beating her and winning the competition. And then, most of my summers were always going to summer camp. And then the summer of grade 12 was 1967. The Canadian Championships were in Vancouver. So I flew out to Vancouver. I ended up shooting really well. I ended up beating all the men in Canada and winning the Canadian Handicap Championships on Sunday. And then got on a plane and flew back to Edmonton, and my friends drove me to camp, and I worked at Pioneer Ranch Camp and then went to Pioneer Pacific the whole summer. So then the next year I was in university, and my father said, well, you're too old to go to camp. So we went to this big competition in Reno, Nevada. My mom and my younger brother and I drove down, and the first few days, everybody kept saying, oh, isn't that nice? Well, don't expect to be good, dear, because you're just a young Canadian girl. And, oh, talk about a red flag in front of a bull. What do you mean? Put me down because I'm young, put me down because I'm a Canadian, put me down because I was a girl. And so I ended up then starting to win the women's events for the next couple of days. And then on the final day, I beat 1,280 men and won the handicap championships.
Amazing. So the T-shirt that says "Go ahead, underestimate me" was actually written for you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a year of people underestimating me.
I love it. I love it. Excellent. And who was coaching you at the time?
Well, what started as my father quickly turned not a good thing. We're both very similar and really rubbed each other the wrong way. So my first world championships were in 1969, and he and my mom went with me, and he was my coach. 1970, the world championships, they both went with me, and it was terrible. The things that he did as far as never letting me relax, just nagging, and to this day, some of the things that he used to do to get my attention still puts the hair up on my back of my neck, just So anyway, then I banned him because what happened, there was a shooter from Montreal, his name's Harry Wilsey, big time skeet shooter. And Harry and my father were in the 64 Olympics together. And after that, the championships, because just my father yelling and all that kind of stuff, I didn't win the medal. I came 4th or 5th. And I was just so upset, and I was ready to quit. So Harry said, yeah, go ahead, quit. Show them you don't have what it takes. What do you mean? So I decided I didn't want to quit. And so the solution was that I had to ban my father from going to international competitions. And my mom was my coach. My mom went with me. And I found it interesting over the years that every time I won a world championship, someone would claim that they were my coach. So there's all these men that have claimed that they were my coach, and some I know and some I don't, but it's always been my mom.
It was your mother all along. And was she coaching you from a shooter perspective, or the mental game, or all of it? Or just, I mean, moms are coaches by default, right? So
yeah, and it was interesting with my mom. She watched more shooting than anybody you'd ever imagine, because she started going with my father, 10 years before she ever started going with me anywhere. So she's watched the game, and she's was a really good judge of what you're doing. And it took a lot of my encouraging for her to have more confidence in her coaching ability as far as the skill. But the main thing was she knew me, and she knew what I needed to do and not do, that kind of thing. And but she knew the sport, and she knew how I shot the sport. Even in her 90s. I mean, I won my last world championship. She was with me. It was in Croatia in 2006. And I won my last world championship on her 86th birthday.
oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
that is truly an inspiring story. That really makes us all want to get out with our moms and shoot. I think that's pretty
And
cool.
she was good. I mean, she's really was the exception. She was really quite exceptional in that how she would be so supportive. And I remember, in her latter years, even in her 90s, I'd take her out to the Vancouver Gun Club, and I would practice, and I'd come back to the car and I'd say, I just don't know what I'm doing. And she said, "You're too high." I went, look at her, like, you're kidding. And then I'd go back out and she was right.
Well,
So
she figured it all out from the sidelines, and she was able to help you through the process. So what a team. I think that's amazing. Totally fantastic. So seeing as you've got such an amazing and illustrious career, we've asked the other ladies about high points and low points. I hate asking because there are so many places you've been, but can you share with us some of those high points, some of those low points, and touch on that? How did you overcome some of those low
yeah.
points, that mental game side of things?
I think, well, there's so many high points. It's hard to sort of narrow it down, but I'll try. I mean, to win my first world championship, um, the year before I had set a new world record. And so I was really geared towards this world championship. Then 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, I was rushed into emergency surgery. And I'm in the hospital, and I mean, I saw my doctor on Monday, and Monday afternoon, he said, I think you should go to the hospital. And he said, and maybe not think about go to the world championships. And I mean, I'm walking thinking, I'm going to the world championship.
Of course,
So
of course.
I ended up having emergency surgery, came out of it on, Tuesday morning and that. And then Tuesday, when my doctors came, I said, I still want to go to the world championship. So they sort of put me on a regime on what I could do and what I couldn't do. And then 2 weeks later, my mom and I went to the world championships. They were in Bern, Switzerland, which is just so beautiful place. But we got there. Well, first off, because everybody was there, the Canadian team, we had to take trains and I couldn't lift. So my mom is carrying the guns and I'm trying to let her, I mean, I'm not supposed to lift too much. And it was just a horrible time for her. But we got there and the Canadian team had canceled our hotel reservation. So we got to stay in the YWCA for a couple of days.
Are these high points or low points? I'm starting to lose track.
Well, it's part of the whole process of, you just gotta just keep pushing through it. And so then I got to practice a day and then compete, and then I set the world record and won the world championship. So
Amazing,
that was pretty
amazing.
cool. Then I was sick, but anyway, it was pretty cool.
That is absolutely very, very cool, and thank you for sharing. And I
And
know many of you guys know that Lee and Linda are both pistol shooters, and I mentioned Susan's a trap shooter. So the weight of a shotgun is considerably more than that of a pistol, and so
yeah,
having to carry that around is a big deal.
yeah,
Go
and I
ahead,
carried
Susan.
a pair of them, two of
Oh,
them, just and
of
so
course.
my shotgun weighs about 9.5 pounds. So, you're lifting that and yeah, it gets heavy.
So
But
for shotgun lovers, what did you shoot? What was your prized possession for your competitive gun?
well, I still am competing. I'm going in
Of
May
course,
to a World Cup in Italy.
of course.
Um, so my shotgun I first started off with was a Remington 1100.
Everybody's started with a
And
Remington
I
1100.
set all sorts of North American records in American style trap, an ATA trap, using my Remington 1100. And then I moved to a Perazzi and I won all of my world championships with Perazzis.
They're a
And
wonderful gun from Italy
and
for those of you who aren't
yeah,
Perazzi
it's a
fans.
it's a really beautiful gun. And I've
It is.
also shot Beretta for 4 years. Mr. Beretta wined and dined me, and I shot his gun in for the '88 Olympics.
Wasn't he lucky, Mr. Beretta, getting to take Miss Susan
I was
Nattress
lucky
out?
too. It was really fun.
Yeah.
I think a high point was the '76 Olympics because they were in Montreal, and it was the Olympic Games. And um, the day before the opening ceremonies, we were told we had to meet to learn how to march. So there's the Canadian team in the athletes center learning how to march, and this little sergeant major lined us all up by according to height, and then we had to march left, right, what, gauche, what, gauche, gauche, droite,
In
gauche,
both
droite.
national languages, of course.
Oh yeah. And so we're doing it. And so then the next day is the opening ceremonies. And so we're marching in and we're concentrating because he's yelling out left, right, gauche, droite, gauche, droite. And then finally some of the spectators are going, Canada, wave, smile. And then we thought, yeah, I mean, we're so busy concentrating on how to march. So then we go into the stadium. Okay, so we're the host, so we're the end country. And as we come out, everybody's cheering. The big O, everyone is cheering. And I think all of us nearly died. It was like, holy moly. It was just the tears. It was just amazing.
That I can't even imagine, and what an amazing experience for those of you who get to feel it and share it with us, because it truly must be amazing to represent your country at these kind of events. So thank you for sharing that. So speaking of, let's go over now to the advocacy side, Susan. Let's talk about what happened and
Okay.
why you decided it was important to get involved.
So up until 1992, women could, okay, so I was the first and only woman in the 76 Olympics. And then after that, in 88, enough of us women shot good scores. So they decided, well, I guess we'll allow 6 women and 54 men, or 54 men at that time, to compete in the 88 Olympics. And then in the 92 Olympics, we had 6 women and 48 men. Well, just before the Olympics, at the World Cup, the ISSF decided that they would make trap and skeet men only, and that the Olympic event for women would be double trap. And so then in the 92 Olympics, months later, was the last time, there were 6 of us women in trap and 6 in skeet. Well, one of the skeet women won. She beat all the men, which was fantastic. Her name is Shan Zhang, and she was from China. And everybody gets it wrong. They think because she won, they closed trap and skeet to men only, but it wasn't. They had already done that. But her winning it helped me in my political battle. So I started at the 1992 Olympics, writing to all the IOC members and meeting with the IOC president. And then after that, I just started lobbying and doing petitions and all kinds of stuff. And it got so that members of the ISSF executive, every time they saw me coming, would turn around and run the other way, because I was
Good for you.
a dog
Good for
with
you.
a bone. And then what happened, in 1995, I met a person who became my future colleague, Dr. Barbara Drinkwater. And Barbara was with Women's Sport International. And she had all these connections. And so I started telling her about this battle I was going to. So she would come to she went to a World Cup in Georgia in 1996 and met everybody and could see how people really wanted to shoot trap and skeet again. I mean, I was at a World Cup in China and Shan Zhang came up to me and she goes, Susan, I need to shoot skeet. She said, I hate double trap, because all of us had to shoot double trap. That's all our choice. So anyway, Barbara put me in touch with another member of the Women's Sport International, who is a member of the IOC Women's Committee. And so I wrote what I always call my epistle. It was like 12 pages of why women, the whole history of women in shotgun shooting, and back from the 60s all the way through, and why they should have their separate event. So I put this all together and I talked about what would happen if we had a separate women's event in the Olympics. And I'm so excited and so happy to say that everything I said that would happen has happened. Women now are professional shooters. Women get university degrees. I mean, women coaches. It's just been fantastic. But anyway,
Congratulations.
so
That's amazing. Congratulations,
so
Susan.
the IOC Women's Committee it was headed by an American, Anita DeFranz, and Anita took up the band, and she knew the president of the ISSF and started, talking to him about it. So in 1997, I was at a World Cup in Italy, and the general secretary of the ISSF came up to me and said, "You won." I looked at him, I said, "Won what?" I'm still in the competition. And he goes, "The IOC has just announced that women's trap and skeet will be an event at the 2000 Olympics." And it's just like,
Amazing.
yes.
That
So that was,
everybody needs to do some kind of air clap or golf clap. That is amazing. And I really want to know, Susan, does that epistle of yours, that document, live somewhere? Did
it
you
lives in
publish it?
my desk and in my
Wh-
computer.
You
But I
know, if
really need to get it out, I think,
you
because
do it, if you'd like to send it, Ladyguns will publish it. We'll put it on our website. We'll share it with all the women shooters as a
yeah.
motivational piece because you're such an inspiration.
Well, then my battle wasn't finished. So then what they did is that they made the men shoot 125 and the women only shoot 75. So I saw Anita DeFranz after that, and I said, "When can I start doing about the same score?" And she said, "Well, let's just get through get through the Olympics." So I started in 2003 talking to Anita, but in 2007 until 2017, the lobbying, the petitions, all that kind of bullshit, and finally, what it was is the IOC came up with this document about being prepared for 2020. And I wrote to the ISSF executive and said, "This meets, if you allow women in all the shooting sports to shoot the same number of targets as the men, this will qualify in the IOC's recommendation for sports." And so they ended up passing it. And so now, starting in 2018, women shot the same number of targets. I fought a lot because the shotgun women wanted it. They also did it for rifle and pistol. And I don't know how many of the rifle and pistol women really wanted it or not, but they got it. So
That's an
everyone's,
amazing fight for equality. And thank you for doing that because women want the opportunity to just compete and compete on an even stage. And shooting is one of those things. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. You get out there, you do it, you love it. You get the gun that fits, as was mentioned by Kelly earlier tonight, in the sport that you love, and just get out. It's an even playing field. So thank you so much, Susan, for
yeah,
doing that
but
for us.
one thing I have to say, and everybody says, "Well, then let's just have men and women compete together." But you can't, because when you do that, what happens is all the money goes to the men. You know, getting ready, you talked about a disappointment. Getting ready for the 1980 Olympics, the Soviets ranked me in the top 5 in the world in the men. And then we had the boycott. And it was my biggest disappointment because I was so ready. The year before, I had shot almost matched my world record, and I was in the top 10 in the world in the men for 77, 78, and 79, and then we boycotted. So,
Amazing.
but I, like Linda said, and Lee is probably would say too, is it's all self-funded. So what happens when we started to have a separate women's event, then women got funding because it's an Olympic event. And there was money. There's money for women to compete. And countries started doing the equality thing as far as, okay, it might be easier for our women to win an Olympic medal than it is for our men. That's what the Chinese did back in the 80s.
And medals count, right? Medals
Yeah,
count.
and so they got funding. And so if we put the men and women back together again, we're not going to get funding. The women will not get the funding. I can guarantee it, because I lived through it for too long where women didn't get the funding. Now
That
they
is
have a new event called the mixed team, a man and a woman. So that's fine, but let's not do away with the separate men's event and separate women's event.
that is absolutely incredible. You're so motivational, and I mean, I don't know if I have words for how, to express how much you've gone through to get this equality. And I think that's super. I don't know. It's just amazing. It's fantastic, and I certainly applaud you personally for that. So thank you very much. And I think all the ladies on the call are feeling warm and fuzzy right now. So
Well, good.
that
But
that's
you're
amazing.
saying something about age. Somebody asked about age. Okay, I turned 70 in November, and I am still competing. I don't compete as well. I mean, I don't shoot as well. I do have moments. I just don't have as many moments as I used to. And it's trying to put the moments together so
Right.
that it's not one here and one there, but let's put them together here.
I love that about the shooting sports, and it doesn't matter what discipline you enjoy. You go to a range, and there's everything from youth and families all the way to seniors that are enjoying it and that are helping each other and embracing each other to be better. So I think that's amazing. So I don't want to omit something that's really incredible about your accomplishments, Susan, because while you were doing all of this, you also got your PhD and are taking care of women in bone health. So, have you got a
Yes.
few minutes to share with us what you're doing to help women in bone health? It's truly amazing.
Well, I was very fortunate. I was at a conference on women and education, and I met Dr. Barbara Drinkwater. And I had just finished, I was the director of athletics at St. Mary's from 1990 to 1995. And I was stopped doing that, and I was looking for something to do. And she talked about what she did, and I wanted to come back west. And so I went out to see what she was doing. And Barb was world renowned in the area of osteoporosis and exercise. And I mean, I had studied her stuff when she is the woman who enabled women to run marathons in 1984. She did all the work to prove to the IOC that women could run marathons. Anyway, Barb offered me a position as a colleague, and I started doing clinical trials in the area of women and osteoporosis, prevention and treatment. And I've been doing it ever since, and I absolutely love it. I did a longitudinal study on women athletes, masters athletes, starting from about 45 up to about 90. And actually, I had a couple of women a little older than that. And just looking at how they're, so many women, older women will say, well, I don't need to do anything because I exercise and I take my calcium and vitamin D. And we're going, no, you need to do a bit more. And so this study was looking at that and just what happens and what happens to the bones and what happens when you're going along and then all of a sudden you hit menopause and there your bones are heading down the tube, and what you can do. And so I do now. I'm in the midst of doing a clinical trial on a new medication. And I'm hired, I'm a site, one of the sites, that is hired by a pharmaceutical company to do clinical trials in the area of osteoporosis,
That's
prevention, treatment, also
so.
menopause.
Right. Thank you just for mentioning that in case anybody didn't catch my story about sitting in a snowbank to celebrate International Women's Day. I can tell you hot flashes from my first experience are very tropical for those of you who haven't enjoyed them yet. So, uh, Susan, Dr. Nattress, thank you so much. I think we might need to do another show on women and sports psychology and bone health and training. I think that would be amazing and super cool.
Okay, one of
You
my other areas is sports psych.
Oh,
So
see?
I taught sports psychology for 5 years. So I know a couple of sports psychologists who I can give you their names. They're really good. And the one knows something about shooting.
Amazing. So I think we'll have to have you back. Hopefully, everybody that's enjoying this show tonight will come back as well. But right now, I'm sorry to say we're going to have to go and give away some prizes again.